everyone. Before we begin, let's take a moment to center ourselves and become fully aware, to be present in this space. Just start by finding a comfortable position, letting your body settle and relax. If it feels natural, you can gently close your eyes and take a couple of deep breaths. So take a breath through your nose, and then as you exhale, feel any tension begin to release through your mouth. So take a breath in and then breathe out from your mouth, and see if you can find your own soothing rhythm. And with every inhale, imagine drawing in calm and clarity. And with every exhale, let go any stress, lingering thoughts, or distractions from your day. Now bring your attention to the present moment and notice the sensations in your body, the gentle rise and fall of your chest, and the grounding weight of your feet on the ground, on the floor. Now softly and gently shift your focus inwards. Without judgment or resistance, simply observe what's present within you, the thoughts, the emotion, physical sensation. Whether you notice peace, unease, or something in between, just acknowledge it with kindness. And as we prepare to explore the theme of healing ruptures and relationships, take a moment to connect with your own intention of being here. Perhaps you're seeking understanding, growth, or reconnection. Whatever your intention is, recognize it as an act of care for yourself and your relationships. With each breath, invite a sense of compassion for yourself and others. Imagine every inhale filling you with gentle understanding, and every exhale releasing any fear, blame, or resentment that you may be holding. Now take a couple of more deep breaths in as we begin this journey of insight and renewal. And whenever you feel ready, gently open your eyes. If they've been closed, bringing this calmness and centered energy into the space as we begin our session today. Now, so what we are covering today is heal relationships, relationship ruptures, and rebuilding trust. So we'll get a little bit we'll spend the first 15-20 minutes into understanding what means relationship ruptures, what are the nature of these ruptures, how they impact you, and then we'll start to go into what could be possible pathway to rebuild trust. And then we'll prepare for an IFS session, internal family system session, so that you can prepare yourself for that, and then we'll get into the session. So you'll go deep inside and discover and try and make sense and even heal part of you. And then we'll use sound with tuning forks to get more deeper insights and release. And then at the end of the hour, we'll come back for a Q&A. We'll be here for about an hour after that for any questions, clarification that you may have. So let's get into it. So relationship ruptures are inevitable. In every meaningful relationship, there is going to be rupture, whether it's a sharp argument with a partner, a misunderstood comment from a friend, or a parent failing to meet child's emotional needs. These moments of disconnection are part of human interaction. Imagine you're having a stressful day and your partner or friend or colleague makes you an offensive remark. Instead of seeking clarification, you snap back or go cold. In this moment, a rupture occurs. Not because either of you intended it to, but because misalignment happened, which is natural, but then there was no further communication around that. None of us are perfect communicators or mind readers. So ruptures are bound to happen. Now, when rupture happens, they often hurt deeply. They can trigger feelings of rejection, betrayal, or unworthiness. Now think about a child whose parent is too busy to notice their needs for comfort. They may internalize that experience as I'm not important enough. As adults, these same wounds resurface in our relationships, amplifying the pain of ruptures done in the past as a little kid. While this can feel overwhelming, it is important to remember that this pain holds a hidden opportunity as well. I have a couple clients that I've been working, and they both have deep hurts from their parents, and they've been married for 15 years, and they wanted to separate and divorce. And when we get into detail, they have actually been getting triggered by each other and are convinced that there is something wrong with my partners. Both of them are convinced. And so every rupture is also a chance to go closer, but only if we approach it with curiosity and care and some form of compassion. When addressed thoughtfully, ruptures can deepen trust and understanding. After working with this couple client that I was talking about with few sessions, we were actually able to go back to that partner and they were actually able to go back to the partner and said something like, I realized I snapped at you earlier. I was feeling overwhelmed and I didn't mean to take it out on you. So that's how healing ruptures, what it results. So you start to get into an aspect of immediately understanding that I am creating more rupture, and then what you do is there's a moment of repair that not only heals the wound, but actually starts to strengthen the bond by showing vulnerability and care. In same way, when we take responsibility of our role in a conflict or show empathy for another person's perspective, we actually turn ruptures into bridges for deeper connections. So ruptures in relationship are natural and inevitable, but they don't have to lead to a disconnection. Instead, they can be opportunities to reflect, grow, and build stronger bonds. By embracing the discomfort of those moments and choosing to engage in repair, we not only heal the pain of the present, but actually start to lay foundation for understanding much more deeper meaning for the connection, and also understand where it came from. So we'll try and do this in our session today. Now, what are the different nature of ruptures? So you have ruptures in relationships often trigger deep emotional response like hurt, anger, or fear of rejection. Let me give you the same example for the client. The wife, so to give example there, the wife had an important event, so it's an example, and was sharing what people said about her to her partner as a positive feedback. And she saw that her husband was not interested and had checked out and was looking on his phone. And he didn't seem to be apologetic. For some, she tolerated it for some time, but then it brought up feeling of not being valued or prioritized, exactly as like how she felt from her mother as a kid. And so the emotion actually stems from a deeper vulnerability that she felt as a little kid, a fear of abandonment, fear of not being given attention, and the consequence of not being given attention. And so these triggers are rooted in part of us that are deeply in the past, and in the present moment they actually we feel threatened from the reaction from your partner, which is the rupture. So when a rupture occurs, we often fall into habitual patterns to protect ourselves. Some people withdraw. You remember fight, flight, fawn, and freeze. So either some people withdraw, which means they start to create emotional distance to avoid further hurt. Others may lash out, fight, blaming the other person to shield themselves. Some others would just check out, which is freeze, which means unavailable. And for example, in the client case, the woman would flee. She would leave the room in anger and disgust rather than expressing the disappointment or sadness underneath. And so these defensive responses are ways we try to protect ourselves, but they often push the other person further away, deepening the rupture instead of mending it. And this is their problem in the marriage, that they were actually pushing each other away once they get triggered. So unresolved wounds and unmet needs from our past often amplify the pain of ruptures. For example, if as a child you were often overlooked, a small moment of feeling ignored by someone you care about can feel disproportionately painful. It touches an old wound. And in these moments, we are not just reacting to the current situation, but to a lifetime of unmet needs or unhealed traumas. And this makes it harder to see the present moment clearly and to have a response which is constructive. Instead, we might unconsciously replay old dynamics, expecting the other person to fix what was broken long before they were in our lives. So relationship ruptures hurt because they touch something deeply vulnerable within us, our longing for a connection, the fear of rejections. A protective response, whether withdrawal, blame, or escalation, are often understandable, but they are also counterproductive. And when these ruptures intersect with unmet needs or past wounds, they can feel very overwhelming. And understanding this dynamic is key to approach ruptures with more awareness, compassion, and potential for healing and growth. So what are we going to do? Okay, what is the way forward? Now, what I've found is that the barriers to repair is basically internal conflicts. And there's a conflict of avoidance, and there's a fear of vulnerability. So when we face a rupture, two common barriers often hold us back from repairing and rebuilding trust. The first is conflict avoidance. Many of us fear that addressing the issue will lead to more pain. So what we do is we avoid difficult conversations altogether. For example, a friend cancels plans repeatedly, and instead of expressing your hurt, you pretend it doesn't bother you, but this avoidance leaves an issue unresolved, building silent resentment over time. The second barrier is fear of vulnerability. After experiencing past betrayals or hurt, we may build this emotional wall to protect ourselves. Think of a partner who keeps their feelings to themselves because they fear being criticized or misunderstood. While these barriers may be protective, but they actually prevent authentic connection and leaves ruptures unhealed. So to cope with these dynamics, we actually develop these different kind of parts. We have a compliant part, we have a defensive part, we have a withdrawal part. Okay, so for example, if you fear vulnerability, a defensive part might step in to deflect the blame, saying, "Well, you are hurt too." Meanwhile, a compliant part might agree to things that they resent later. At the moment, you'll agree, and then afterwards, you resent, because at that moment you're avoiding confrontation or having any conflict. So resolving inner conflict is key, so that these silent, not to have these silence parts be not heard. And for example, the withdrawn part may fear rejection, while the defensive part may fear being seen as weak. And so they keep creating these different conflicts within, and so you don't see the real story. You always see what is presented in the moment. So what we'll try and do is work on these two conflicting parts, one which is conflict avoidance, and the other one which is a fear of vulnerability, because these are two common barriers to repairing ruptures. And these parts, while well-intentioned, can keep us stuck in patterns that prevent growth. And so we'll go to them in the IFS way in our next section. So what I want you to do is to think about your story now, because you're here for you. And think about recent rupture in a relationship, anyone. And think about, was there a part of you that avoided addressing the conflict? And what was it trying to protect you from? And in the same situation, was there a part of you that felt defensive or hesitant to share your feeling, to be vulnerable? What was it afraid might happen if you were open? So think about your story and think about the part of you that was avoiding addressing the conflict, and at the same time there was another part of you that was hesitant to share your feelings or be vulnerable. Think about it, and then we'll go deep inside. I'd send by message, so see if you can have those two objects nearby, one close to your left hand, one close to your right hand. Any two objects. Crystal, paper, stones, pencil, pen, whatever, doesn't matter. So see if you can Just be in a comfortable, peaceful spot. You can keep a piece of paper and pencil nearby if you want to capture insights. So you can always open your eyes or keep your eyes closed as you want. And just be in a comfortable composure. So take a deep breath to center yourself through your nose, drawing in calm and clarity. And exhale through your mouth. And just repeat that a couple of times. Inhale through your nose. And then exhale through your mouth. Now do a scan. Go from the top of your head up to your toes. And just notice any sensation you may feel in different part of your body. Just notice. You don't have to do anything, but just observe. So you go from your head into your shoulders, into your chest, into your belly area, stomach, belly, then down into your hips area, through your thighs, into your knees, and then down into your toes. Just notice any sensation. And now visualize your safe space. It can be a person, a memory, a place that brings you a sense of comfort and protection, safety. It can be a person, it can be a memory, it can be a place where you feel safe. Just bring it into your awareness. And this is your sanctuary, where you can feel safe or secure enough to explore your inner world. Now let this safe space support you as you go deeper into your inner dialogue. So see if you can focus on the situation in your life that you would like to work on, the rupture in relationship. Picture yourself in that moment and feel the pull and push of these two parts that we said. One which is avoiding conflict, another one which is avoiding you to be vulnerable. So see if you can shift your attention, your focus to the part of you that steps in to avoid conflict. Notice what you feel in your body, or you see an image. Notice the sensation in your body, or if you see an image, just take note of this image. And as you connect to that sensation in your body, notice what emotion is arising within you as you connect with it. What do you feel? Just acknowledge that feeling, that sensation. It can be anger, it can be disgust, it can be just numbness, whatever you feel. Just acknowledge it. And if there's a critical thought or a judgment thought that emerge, you can always ask those voices to step back, go into waiting room for now, so that you can focus on this conflict avoidance part of you. Now pick at this object that you have on your left hand and hold it in your left hand and ask it to represent this part of you that is avoiding conflict. And see if you can be curious about this part. Why does it feel the need to avoid conflict? What is it trying to protect you from? So just become curious. So while holding this object in your left hand, see if you can create a dialogue with it. And keep an attitude of curiosity as you ask this part to represent in this object in your left hand. And ask few questions to your left hand, the part object in your left hand. Ask it saying, I'm curious to know what is your intention for me? And just hear what you get. So just notice what you hear. You're asking, I'm curious to know what is your intention for me? What do you want for me? And then ask another follow-up question. I'm curious to know, what are you afraid might happen to me if I face this conflict? What are your fears for me? And see what you hear. Ask it, I'm also curious to know, what is your biggest fear for me? The biggest fear you have for me. So see if you can acknowledge, maybe with compassion, because this is what it is trying to protect you from. So just acknowledge, saying, oh, I understand it. I get it. And just feel compassion for it. And now ask a question. I'm curious to know how you have been impacting my day-to-day life, my relationship to people, how you have been impacting my life. And see what you hear. Stay curious. A little bit compassion will help. So see if you can acknowledge, because now you understand how this has been impacting your day-to-day life. And stay compassionate. And now ask, I'm curious to know, when did you first start protecting me this way? How old was I when you started doing this for me? So it'll tell you an age. And what was going on then? Just notice how you feel towards this part that you're holding in your left hand. Do you feel understanding and compassion? See if you can acknowledge and thank this part for its protective role. Ask it if it's willing to name itself so you can address it later. So see if it's willing to give you a name, any name. There's no judgment, no, any name. And just take note of the name. And now ask it with a name, saying, okay, what it needs to feel more secure, what it needs or what needs to happen so that it can feel more secure. It'll tell you some form of action. Thank it and ask it if it's now willing to step back so that we can speak to the other part, and then we'll invite it back again. So just ask it to step back and see if you can now shift your attention to the part of you that fears being vulnerable. See if you can pay attention to any sensation you feel in your body, or if you see any images. Just acknowledge whatever emotion you feel as you connect to this. Just acknowledge. And pick up the object in your right hand to represent this part. That you feel it in your body this way. And see if you can become curious about it. Curious, why does it feel the need to protect you by putting up all these emotional walls? So just become curious. And see if you can hold this object in your right hand and ask it, I'm curious to know what you want for me. What is your intention for me? And notice what you hear. And see if you can now ask it and say, I'm curious to know What are you afraid would happen to me if I'm vulnerable? And just see what you hear. And then see if you can ask and say, what is your biggest fear from me? What are you afraid would happen that will be the biggest thing that can happen to me? Your biggest fear for me. And notice what you hear. So what you heard is what is trying to protect you from. And see if you can feel compassion for it and acknowledge it. Saying, I hear, oh, that's what you're trying to protect me from. And just feel compassion for it. And ask a question from that place of compassion is, how did you impact my day-to-day life? Especially my relationship with people. How do you impact my day-to-day life? And see what you hear. And now ask, when was the first time that you started protecting me this way? How old was I? And what was going on then? To tell you an age, I may show you what was going on to you as a little girl or a boy. Take note of the age. Just notice, how do you feel towards this part that you hold in your right hand? Do you feel compassion for its fears and its frustrations? And acknowledge and thank this part for its role in keeping you safe. And ask it if it's willing to name itself so you can address it later on. And then ask it what it needs to feel more balanced, and whether it can share its perspective with the conflict avoidance part, with the other part in the left hand, if it's willing to share its perspective. If it has resistance, you say, well, we will hold both of you, both these parts, in compassion and no judgment. So see if it's willing to come forward. So now invite both parts. So hold your two objects in your left hand and in the right hand. One holding the conflict avoidance, the other one holding fear of vulnerability. And ask them to engage in a dialogue and encourage both parts to find a common ground, understanding that they share the same goal of keeping you safe. So just let them explore how they can work with each other together to allow you to address ruptures without fearing, without having any fear or avoidance. And ask them both what needs to happen for them to feel calm and more relaxed. So take a moment to do. The one in your left hand, one in your right hand. Thank both these parts for their presence and acknowledge their important roles. And take a moment to share a vision for yourself moving forward. What you want, what is your intention? Share a vision for yourself. And see if you can tell both of the parts saying, I'm going to be in dialogue with you, and I have a process by which I can work with each of you, work with the age, younger part, the age that you brought in. So I will keep coming, I will come back to you in the coming day. And thank them for their presence. And take a moment to just come back to the present moment, be here. And if you want to take notes, you do as we start to prepare for the tuning fork session. We are going to work on tuning forks now. And the way the process works is that basically you have this biofield, so this torus around you. And the premise is that once we activate this field, actually the field is always active. When we use a tuning fork to activate it, then it starts to act and does something interesting, which is we can go into this field and tap into some form of blockages that you may be holding on to that did come up today as well in this session. So they will come up, and what you will do is have them released with the process that we are going to do. Okay, so how we work is we open the channel from below the feet and top of the head, okay, so that we activate this whole torus, and then run a pendulum to know which center we are going to work today because of what you brought in for your need. And so whatever chakra center will work, and then we start from the extreme of the torus, so it's about 6 feet out of left or right of your center, which is the point of when you are conceived, so your time of conception, and then the timeline goes towards your body to come at the present moment. It's just where your body is. So the rest of this holds the timeline. And so we come into that, and whatever we find, I will bring it to your awareness, and then what you do is just release. And how do you do that? You breathe. So the breath is something like you take a deep breath in, and then you release from your mouth. Okay, and deep one. And you do when I tell you to do, don't, otherwise you'll hyperventilate. Okay, so just do when you hear me saying, okay, take a breath. You take a deep breath in from your nose, and then you release. And I will find the points, and then I will tell you what age, what emotion is coming up, And if it means something for you that has happened in your life, you do the breath. And I will also, of course, use the tuning fork to release. And sometimes if it's very heavy, you can also do something like when you release. Okay, here we go. So we start from the below the feet, top of the head, and then into the chakra. Okay, so I'm going to start using 144 hertz, and I'm going to be below your feet. Open the center below the feet. Take a breath. So I'm now below your feet, pointing towards your backbone, opening the channel from below the feet. Okay, there's a lot of heaviness, especially in the solar plexus. Take a deep breath and release. Yeah, there's a form of anxiety or restlessness. Just see if you can acknowledge it and just release it. Take a breath. You're safe. So feel safe. Okay, now I'm going to ground you, connect you to Mother Earth. Take a breath. Now I'm going to go to the top of the head. And open the channel from top of the head through the backbone into feet. Take a breath. Okay, we have opened the two channels. I'm going to run a pendulum so you can't see and hear anything. Start from the root, first center, and go to the second center. So we are going to find out which center we have to work today. Okay, I'm on the third one, the solar plexus. Okay, it wants to work on the heart and wants us to work on the left side. So, yeah. Okay. Yeah. So, heart, left side, I think you've done before. This is basically loss or grief that could be held still that you are holding on to. So I'm going to start at the edge, which is at the time of conception, and then we'll go to the present moment, starting from the edge. And we're starting from the using a different tuning fork, 174 hertz. So now I'm at the time of conception. Yeah, it's back. The fear, so safety. What came in the beginning is back again. So the little one doesn't feel safe to come in. That's what is coming. It wants assurances, saying, I'm not coming because I'm not assured. It feels a lot of fear. So what you can do is just breathe and imagine the little cell that is you coming into the world, your first presence into this consciousness, and see if you can welcome that little one and let it know how much you value it. Whatever has happened in your life has happened, but you value this life so much that is coming into the world. And see if you can assure it and give it your word of how much you value it, in whatever words you want to do that. And just breathe into that sensation. Yeah. And now it's feeling a little bit of a pain in the heart, wants to be loved. So see if you can. I'm using another tuning fork now. Just see if you can now. First you said, I accept you. You're valuable to me. Now see if you can send love to that little one, to that light being, that light force that is coming. Has just been conceived and formed. Send it love, your love. That's all it wanted. Extremely calm down. It's now at the age of about 14, 15, and they're asking the same question. Can you please give love and acceptance to this 15, 14-year-old you? As he or she is, without judgment. Just give your love. Unconditional love. Yeah. He's looking for it from you. So take a breath. There's a 14, 15-year-old. Doesn't feel loved or wanted. So see if you can do that. So this heaviness, there's a lot of pain in the chest. So just see if you can take a deep breath and release whatever is coming up for you that you have been holding on to. It's brought me to the top of your heart and is asking whatever came up, that sharp pain, that pain that you feel in your chest, give yourself permission to release it. Allow it to go. Give yourself permission to allow it to go. Releasing it out. Okay, we are going to wrap it up. This process will continue to work for the next 72 hours. And wrap you in a cocoon of 528 hertz. So just take a moment to reflect on the parts that surfaced during the session today. Acknowledge their presence and the courage it took to explore them. So sit with this awareness, connecting deeply with those parts and honoring their unique roles that they've played in your life. Recognize how they have tried to protect you. Now just offer your gratitude to these parts. And just imagine sending a warm, soothing light to both these parts, filling them with compassion and understanding, letting them know that they are valued, seen, and appreciated. Visualize these parts becoming together, working in harmony, supporting you, collaborating together to help you approach ruptures with both confidence and care. Now take one final deep breath, feeling this sense of integration and calm flowing through your entire body. And when you feel ready, gently start to be back here, carrying this sense of balance and connection within you. Welcome back.